Welcome to Delphic Oracle 7. This program represents a culmination of a lot of effort over the years. It first started in around 1994-95 when I got involved in Project Hindsight. There was virtually no program that dealt with any of the procedures that we were finding, techniques such as zodiacal ephesis. Rob Hand did have a chart wheels tree program that he designed that was basically for DOS, and it covered some of the techniques, but we wanted something that worked in Windows, and of course nowadays we're looking at cross-platform, but back in those days there simply wasn't anything available that helped, and it was many hours of work just to find a single combination of zodiacal releasing, for example, methods that were going through all the various periods by hand is a very laborious subject. So I developed this software first with zodiacal ephesis in the mid-90s, and then the first version came out around the last day of 97, and then around 2003 I finally started work on Delphic Oracle after getting used to Timeus and so on, which was another project of mine. This program is basically designed to keep in mind various authors and their techniques and to try to keep them in some order. But there are primary schools involved, and the two main ones that I've got are based on the chart, the menus that are up here. Everything that's in the menu up at the top pretty much is in the groups down here, so you got chart, edit, system, Hermes, and so on reports. I left a few things out that were overly redundant, but they match. So if you have like the chart menu here, that matches the chart group down here. But the most important thing to focus on after you set up a chart, which I'm not going to go into all the details how to do that now, it's pretty much similar to a lot of other programs in that regard. It does have some niceties. For example, there's an atlas that's very advanced, and it does automatic lookups just like in Solar Fire, and it'll do time zone lookups and so on. Once you have the chart set up, then you can go through the System of Hermes menu, which is basically the Hellenistic system. I should say that this program first started in the area of Hellenistic astrology, and it's branched out a little bit since then. Without the work of Robert Schmidt, a lot of this simply would not be possible. He was a major figure, especially in the mid-late 90s and towards the middle of the last decade. In fact, the reason you probably heard of Hellenistic astrology is because of his work, because he was the one everybody was talking about, because he made the system make sense, and people were just wowed over it, and he was using the term Hellenistic astrology. There were other people before him, like James Holden, who were talking about the subject, but it never quite took off until Schmidt really developed this. Now there are other, of course, differences of opinion. I put other things in here, so there are some of this is grouped up according to different authors. For example, if I look at the Time Lord settings here and go to decennials, I can switch between, say, Valens and Hephaestio. I can change different, for example, in zodiacal releasing method, although at this point the defaults for this are really close to what they should be. We don't normally use modern or Egyptian days anymore. This is the option that we use for zodiacal. It works extremely well. The strange thing is that we don't really know why. So anyway, with all these different techniques, this is probably the most advanced program in the world right now for ancient timing systems. So anyway, there are also different views. You can click on that. and see each view. The main thing, though, is the depth of the information and the ability to cross-reference that I have worked very hard on over the years. Now, one of the things that one can do after one goes into, for example, the preliminary natal analysis, then the universal hermetic techniques, and so on, I'm assuming that most of you know a lot of this stuff. There's some stuff online, for example, if you don't have Schmidt's translations, there is the Riley translation of Valen's that is pretty much complete. But I'd warn you that most of the translations, they suffer from a semantic field defect where the language simply isn't capable of being translated well. And the words that were working Greek, there simply a lot of times isn't a word that comes through in English or another language, and that's a problem. So when you see various translations, one of the things that they were working on was trying to figure out what translation conventions should be used. And this is why the original translations of Project Hindsight were considered to be preliminary, and we were still thinking a lot of times what to do with certain words, and they do make a big difference in how to interpret things. The Riley translation, even the professor there says that it is a preliminary translation itself, and he also understands the same issues are present. So a lot of the time you have to read a little bit between the lines to see what is going on. That's what Schmidt has done with the system of Hermes. He's thrown being classically trained has thrown a lot of the concepts from the Middle Platonic school into this, and he has come up with what is basically the outline for how a Hellenistic astrologer would do a chart, and that's what the system of Hermes is basically based upon. So he set up the preliminary natal analysis wizard, the PNA, which is preliminary natal analysis, which is the assessment of planetary strength, and according to these various different levels. And then I set up a wizard in case you didn't know about what to do with it, so I could take, say, a given planet, and you could go through each one, and it would explain each of these different cells here: fitness according to horizon, fitness according to the lights and zodiac. They are set up according to different Hellenistic fate concepts, but this would give you, the reasoning behind that. I'm not going to go through all of this now, but just know that it's there. Universal Hermetics is similar to finding the chart ruler, but in the Hellenistic era, the chart ruler is really two different planets. Sometimes it would be the same one, in which case that would be very important, but having two rulers is the norm based on the Hellenistic system. And so you have the political officer, which tells what the life is about, what the life is for. In other words, what kind of ship in the nautical metaphor. The nautical metaphor being, if your life is a boat on the ocean, what kind of ship is it and how far does it go on the ocean, which has to do with eminence. So if you take that, that's what that is for. Then you take the Curios, which is the captain, that says something about how you get there. And then there's the Trigon Lords of the Sectlight, which have to do with managing the sails of the boat and showing how far you get in life, and so on. And then you work through this basically in order, and there's a Curios Wizard to help you figure out what the captain of the ship is, and it goes through each planet. Then there is like Topical Wizard, which would go through each topic, and then you can go to the lot list. You can sort according to degree or alphabetically to look up each topic. And then you find out when each one is a Time Lord, because a natal chart will show what something is meaning, but it doesn't show when. And this this whole thing about timing lords. A lot of them, time lords, some of them are topically specific, and others like decennials are general time lord that are basically associated with the universal hermetics. For example, when one finds one's position, or I should say magnum opus, or work, the meaning for one's life, for example, might be found with decennials. In fact, the same rulership scheme with decennials fits with finding the predominator, so it's very close. So Schmidt has theorized that if using the decennials is about that, finding the general thing about general position or general direction of life. Now, the other thing that I wanted to do with this program is be able to cross-reference from various Time Lord systems. For example, if I'm looking at a period, say I'm looking at a Saturn period in this test chart, and then I want to look at something a little bit more. Let me go double-click this, and let me go to here, Saturn. So I see Saturn, and then Schmidt would say, well, look at the participating lord, or the one that is the focus of the period. So if I see Saturn in Taurus, I'm looking at either the Moon or Venus. And so the encounter of, say, Venus would be the period, and then Venus being in Scorpio would go to Mars. So we look at that, and then I double-click and notice that I have here the perfections. Basically, a whole bunch of new charts come up. Then I double-click. This is so that I can see what's going on in other areas. And sometimes I want to see that to see if something else could be the cause of something. So I've set this up, and then I can see what other active Time Lords are involved in various areas. I have it set up right here. Now this is, if I press F3, these are user-defined. You can set up transits, progressions, perfections, zodiacal releasing of various types, all by moving from left to right here, or setting up the order. For example, I could bring zodiacal fortune to the bottom, and then I click save, and then I click save again, and then I double click, and then it'll reorder according to that. Now, it's not always desirable to do that. Sometimes I put this in the right direction, and I'm looking to make sure that things fit in a certain order, and I have it set up primarily so that sets up like that. So this is why I set things up the way I have, with already predefined themes. Now if I right click here, I bring up this. I got a quad wheel display. I can change the display just by double clicking. I can show fixed stars, and I can select the natal planets here on the outside, and on the inside there will be like primary directions or whatever. I mean not primary, I mean perfections and zodiacal releasing of various types. So there's a lot of flexibility here. But it's not just set up in terms of that. There's also the ability to change the entire interface. I can completely change the way this looks by selecting a new GUI style, and it will go out of sight, and then it'll come back up as a different style, and then I can finish off by double clicking on one that I know also matches. So just within a few seconds I've changed everything within the interface. So again, if I hover over, I can basically change all of this. The chart designer is capable of showing everything, like various wheel styles, aspect wheel, bound wheel, decant wheel. You can change it just like you would in solar fire, and display all this. And there are also hints as you go over each object in the wheel. And let's go back and change this to Well, let's go to another one. Let's do a smoky quartz Camry. And it'll take a couple seconds to come up. And we're back there, and I have a certain color theme that I already defined, so I double click. And I'm back to, well, that's sapphire Camry. The smoky quartz is here. See the slight color changes. All these things can be set up, in the wheels, in the visibility, what planets are visible for each wheel. You can set up your colors and then save them as a given color theme. You can go over to glyphs, you can specify your glyphs, and then you can set those all up and then add a glyph theme here and then have it be consistent throughout. Now what I wanted to focus on here is that everything that is in the left hand side is live data that you could set up. You could generate a set of primary directions, and you click and it'll update according to your auto-generated charts, the ones that you predefined, and it'll show you what the currently active Time Lords and transits and progressions are within, in that instant that in this case, primary direction onset took place. So I go back and I want to change to, say, a different type of quad wheel. I want to see, I don't want to see the fixed stars because it gets too cluttered at this time. So I double click and there I am. So the other thing too is, like virtually everything, if I go to the Ferdaria, I can also click here again. It updates once again. I can cross-reference to any Time Lord system in any order and find out what's going on at the exact moment without your having to fill out a transit form or a transit to regression form or whatever. It's all predefined. Once you have the natal chart, you should have all the data already. So there's another place where if you use the graph, you could do the graphic ephemeris. You could click that. I want to get rid of the moon here just so that we go to options. I don't want to show the moon just yet here. Natal planets. Well, we got a whole bunch of. Let's do the sun through here. I think I probably had this specified as some of these, but I don't need the moon visible actually, and we can do those natal planets, transiting planets here, and click save, and then redraw. Oops. Let me get rid of the moon on the transiting one. I forgot that. Transiting planet moon, and we want Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, and let's say the North Node. Save, and we click and redraw here. And we get some pretty information here. Now these dots here represent holoacal phenomenon where they blinked out and where they become invisible. You can click on that and then you can see changes in phasis, in other words intensity within the planets within their different times, so that you could update that and cross-reference at the same time. This is not available in any other program that I'm aware of. So now the other thing too I can do is I can rectify. I can change chart and have it go forward or backward in time. That's available. You can do it just a little bit at a time too. You can also change, once you click on this and bring back your set up Time Lords and so on, you can also change how things are operating within order. And there are of course many other things in this program, such as fixed stars and asteroids, and you can click and sort according to the header here, either alphabetically or by zodiacal longitude, and see what is in each position in contrast. And then you could also, every time you see that, you create an Acrobat file, and we'll bring up your Acrobat. I'm not going to go through all this right now, but Most of this stuff is printable. There are so many techniques that I really can't cover all of them. But this is just a brief overview of Delphic Oracle 7 and the incredible power that is within this program. And I do hope you like it and consider it. Thank you.